Guys, what's going on? This is Matt with Patriots Corner. Now, it's been a while since I've done a podcast. I've been lacking big time and I've been pissed at myself. But former Navy SEAL Clark Impastato has blessed me with his presence today. Clark, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's happening, man? How you doing?
Oh, fantastic. I'm pumped to have you on the show, man. This is really going to be one hell of a podcast. I'm excited. I've been following your page for a long time now. Ever since when I really got Patriots Corner started, dude, you always had the most badass pictures of all time. You're a shredder. I see. You play electric guitar?
I do. I'm just about 9 months into it, so it's slow going, but I just keep at it. I try to get in about 3 hours a day, man. Just keeping my head down, plucking away. So it's been a fun process, man.
What kind of music do you like, Clark? I'm a huge classic rock guy. That's like strictly what I listen to, and I love metal. I mean, I'm a big
Yeah,
ACDC guy.
yeah, definitely. No, ACDC's great, man. I mean, I think my top three have to be Metallica, Black Sabbath, and Korn, and then anything else that kind of surrounds that. To even include some goofy '80s songs or whatever, some of the happier stuff. Van Halen stuff's cool. ACDC just kind of good rock and roll, and so pretty much anything that sounds good, man. Even old Run DMC and stuff, man. I'll
Oh,
get
of
crazy,
course. It's feel good music, man. I'm a big Van
Yeah,
Halen guy. Diamond Dave. Diamond Dave's
yeah,
the shit.
absolutely. Yeah, I just like the good vibe, the good message. Nowadays, a lot of music just seems, whether it's rock or rap, it just seems depressing. It's angry and everyone's getting hurt, and I don't know what's happening. But as I was growing up, primarily an '80s kid, like everything was cool. TV shows were cool, the music was cool, everybody was cool. So I kind of like to stick to that genre, that era of music where it was just kind of fun or happy. I don't mind getting a little gnarly with some corn or something, but anything. I mean, I'll dabble with some Pantera too because I love Dimebag, but anything heavier than that, I don't know. I just kind of stick to the happier stuff, I guess.
No, you're right. It's like it's feel good. Even back to the
Yeah.
TV show. My parents are constantly telling me that I was born in the wrong generation. I was born in '95. So
Oh man.
I got the tail end of it. I mean, I don't have any of the late Shaggy or anything even in my mindset until I found it on iTunes when I was able to learn how to download. But
Oh yeah, it's funny.
but it just seems like yeah, I hear you. I mean, even going in with stuff going on today, how everything just kind of seems like it's just kind of stupid bullshit. You know what I mean? It's stupid funny,
hmm
or it doesn't make any sense, or it's got to be 110% politically correct all the time, and it's just kind of like, oh geez, this is just kind of like annoying a little bit. But
Yeah, it takes the fun out of it. Just back in the day growing up, it was like everything was kind of okay, and even in school, if we came from different backgrounds, we teased each other about it, but in a playful way, and it was just like it was kind of expected. And I don't know, yeah, it's different. You can't say or do anything these days because someone's gonna get butt hurt, and that's kind of, I don't want to fast forward too much, but I'm glad getting into the military community, that camaraderie still exists because when you're halfway around the world, you got nothing else but each other, and sometimes nothing else to do but make fun of each other. So that old style camaraderie still exists today, which is nice. You definitely don't find that in the civilian world, man.
that's what I was gonna ask. I mean, just from listening to a few former SEALs kind of speak, it just you can kind of tell that there's no softness by any means in your guys' community.
Yeah, if you have thin skin, man, you're done. If any type of chink in your armor, they're going to exploit it. So if you, I don't know, you feel weird about, you have big feet or a big nose or goofy ears or whatever it is that you're uncomfortable with, you better become comfortable with it because they're going to push every button they can. And if they see that weakness, oh, it's all in. They're going to exploit the hell out of it. So you learn to just kind of laugh at yourself, not take yourself so seriously. And that's kind of the ultimate personality that especially the smaller units are looking for, is a dude that's comfortable in their own skin, which I think is probably harder and harder to find as the generations go on because every little thing is such a touchy topic. So I'm sure it's difficult nowadays, but at least when I was in, we still had fun and made fun of each other's backgrounds and differences. But it was a team building experience. It wasn't a put down or to make you feel. It was really just to kind of toughen you up and get you part of the pack and you appreciate each other. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, do you feel like even, Navy SEALs of today, guys going in, young guys, that it's kind of they got like an old school mindset? Do you still feel like they're like an older type of soul a little bit, where they kind of get those jokes, they get that mindset type of deal, you know? I mean, do you feel that yourself?
Yeah, I hope so. I've been detached from the community for a little while, just because of some career paths that have led me further and further away from Coronado. Um, but I interacted quite a bit while I was contracting overseas with some of the younger team guys, and that same spirit still seemed to be there. I do know from talking with some friends um, that overall the Navy has changed greatly, and that even in the teens, things like alcohol-related incidents aren't tolerated. You get in a bar fight, you're going to lose your bird.
Oh
So
wow.
kind of yeah, it used to be a little different back in the day. It was little scuffles here and there weren't uncommon, and rowdy behavior was, I don't want to say it was encouraged, but it was definitely a part of how it was back then. And nowadays, I think that just the overall grasp of the bigger military has even gotten into special operations. And maybe it's not always a bad thing. I mean, maybe they've deterred some of the drinking habits and the energies put in other directions. But I can tell that the personalities changed a little bit. It's got a little bit stricter. Um, but again, I've been away from the community for so long, so I still remember the good old days of bouncing around and tearing some stuff up and being a little bit rowdy, being a little bit uncontrollable. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, well, that's what I kind of want to dive into a little bit down the road in the podcast, if it's cool with you. Like some
Mm-hmm.
kick-ass stories from back in the day. If you want to share, I mean, I'd love to hear some of them. They are, I'm sure they're wild.
Yeah, I'll do my best. Some of these we might have to edit out later as I wake up tomorrow going, damn, I shouldn't have told that story. We'll have to see.
But so when did you first realize, starting from square one, what kind of, kid were you? I mean, when did you first
Yeah.
realize that this was the route you wanted to take?
Well, I think it was just without me knowing what was going on. I grew up a few miles outside of Colorado Springs in the foothills, a little sleepy town at the base of Pikes Peak. And so there wasn't a lot to do. I mean, it was very much a little mountain community of about 300 homes just scattered up in the hills. So I spent a lot of time outside building tree forts, riding my bike up and down dirt trails and stuff. So I developed comfort being out in the woods. And I think that was probably the very beginning push towards a military lifestyle, being comfortable outdoors and whatnot, as opposed to, some city folk that never even been camping. Next thing you know, they're at SEER school freaking out. So I think that was the start of it. My mother was a big influence. She was part of the World War II generation. So just growing up, we watched a lot of World War II movies. In the 80s, when I was a kid, a lot of Vietnam era movies, Rambo and all that stuff,
What about
Uncommon Valor.
Platoon?
What's that?
What about Platoon?
Yep, Platoon,
Oh, I
another
love that
classic.
movie, man.
Oh,
That
yeah.
movie's sweet.
Yeah. Full Metal Jacket. All these movies were coming out that were reflecting, the Vietnam era dudes doing their thing. And so I think it's kind of a layered upbringing of, being outdoors a lot. My mom being a part of the World War II generation, and she loved all those movies, the classic black and whites we'd watch. And then just me as a kid hanging out with buddies, spending the night, Arnold doing Commando and all these other movies was all kind of firing you up for military type stuff. So I got the itch early on, but it wasn't until high school when the Gulf War popped off in the early 90s that I was just glued to the 24-hour news networks, just loving it. Just I don't know if I slept the entire time. I had Saddam toilet paper and a Saddam necktie, and like I got way too into it. And I knew at that point, like, this is something I definitely want to do. Absolutely.
Wow. So like this is all you're sitting at home and you're watching this and you're just like, I got to get over there. I want to make a change. I want to fight for my country. Is that
Mhm.
what was going through your head?
Yeah, absolutely. I wish at that moment I could be over there. I felt at that point, that immediate connection, because it wasn't a movie, like this was almost live footage of these dudes duking it out, like right there. I mean, the Gulf War wasn't the most eventful conflict we've had, but at that time it was. I mean, it was like, holy shit, this isn't a little skirmish in Grenada or Panama. I mean, this is really boots on the ground half around the world for, you know, somewhat of a sustained amount of time. It hasn't drawn on like current conflicts, but for me, it was like, this is real. Like, and I just felt that pull, like, God, I wish I could be there with them. And sucks, I'm stuck in high school. So at that point, I had to start making some decisions of joining up, going to college, do what the family wants you to do what you want to do. So I think like most young people, I get hit up a lot on Instagram. You know, I really want to join, but my family wants me to do this and that. And so I kind of, I don't want to say guide them because I can't tell them what decision to make, and especially if it's against their family's wishes. But, you know, I can relate my own personal struggles at that pivotal point in my life. What do I do? Do I do what everyone expects me to do? Or do I just say, you know what, I just have this thing inside me I have to do. I have to go serve, and I don't know if it's going to be 4 years or 30 years, but I have to go do this. And so that was kind of where I was at that point. I knew at some point in my future, this was going to be it. I just didn't know how I was going to get there.
So how did you get there? You know, what was the next step that you obviously joined the Navy? What was then that
Yes.
next step once you got to Great Lakes?
Well, yeah, sort of. I had a little bit of a. I ended up going to college at first,
Okay.
and I wanted to join the Marines. I had a buddy that was in the reserves, and he was like, "Hey, dude, we can do the weekend warrior thing." It was some reserve artillery unit, God, somewhere in Pueblo or Denver, somewhere in Colorado. I was going to college in Southern Colorado at Adams State, and I was thinking about the reserves, and I'm like, well, that's kind of cool. Then I could finish college and maybe get into it full time. So basically, I ended up at college just because I thought that's what everybody should do after high school. I got accepted. But I bumped into another cat that says, hey, if you're already in college, why would you go to a reserve unit? Why don't you go to OCS? And then when you graduate, you'll be commissioned a second lieutenant. Life is good.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, that sounds great. Sure, it sounds like that's what I should be doing. But again, it was these outside influences that were kind of guiding me. And because of the Gulf War at the time, I wanted to join the Marines because from what I knew at the time, they were the toughest dudes, and they are very tough dudes. I like their esprit de corps and a lot of what they stand for. So at that point in time, I had my sights set on being a Marine, decided not to do the reserve thing, but I was going to do the OCS route. So after my junior year of college, I'm sorry, between my sophomore and junior year. So after my sophomore year, I went out to Quantico and I went through the juniors course. And so it's 2 6-week sessions in between your summers of your sophomore and junior and senior year. So I
Okay.
completed the junior course, did my 6 weeks in Quantico, and I didn't like it. It didn't fit me, and I knew right away. I don't know if maybe I should just go to MCRD in San Diego and be an enlisted Marine. Maybe I'll like that better. But the experience I had, I definitely didn't want to go back and finish the seniors course and then seek out a career as an officer in the Marine Corps, at least. Maybe an enlisted Marine, I might do better at like an infantry type MOS. There's no guarantee of your MOS as an officer. Once you graduate, you go to TBS, and then they do this program called thirds. So it's kind of a weird way of ensuring that not all the talent goes to one MOS. They spread the wealth. But if you're kind of a middle of the pack or upper middle of the pack guy, you could get screwed and end up as like a supply lieutenant. And that definitely didn't float my boat. I knew I wanted some type of combat MOS, not some type of supply or logistics type deal. So I talked to some people. I had some very good advice early on from a dude who was a former Force Recon dude that was going to our school.
Okay.
He said, don't join the military just to join the military, because the military will find a purpose for you and it will suck. You need to pick a job, pick a community, pick a unit that has your personality, and then go for that. Don't just join a branch of service and say, okay, shit, I want to be a sailor or whatever. And that's when I stumbled across a SEAL book written by Dick Marcinko.
Oh wow.
And in reading that book, I found a lot of myself in what he believed in what he talked about, other members of the unit that were in that book. Like I could identify with a lot of their beliefs and the way they think and the way they talk and act. So, um, due to my buddy's advice, I did as much research as I could, which was limited. We're talking early mid 90s. So I decided, yeah, I want to do this SEAL thing, and that's what started me on that course. I had to make some tough phone calls to my family to let them know that, hey, my junior year is finished. I am going to drop out of college. I'm going to disenroll from OCS, and I'm going to enlist as an E3 in the Navy. Initially, that didn't sit well so good.
I was about to ask, how'd that go over?
It was pretty much a fart in church. Everyone thought I was crazy, to include my officer selection officer. He made me hang up the phone and call him back 30 minutes later, basically to see if I still wanted to make that same commitment and decision, which I did. It was just something I felt deep inside of me. I had to satisfy the need to serve, but my buddy was right. I had to find the right unit because otherwise the military is miserable. I'm kind of a laid back, silly dude. I wouldn't have been happy in the Marine Corps. Those dudes yell at each other 24/7 would have drove me crazy. I needed to find a unit that's professional but laid back. So luckily through some research and just happened to find the right books at the time. This is before, SEAL books were everywhere. You had to hunt for them back then.
Yeah, well, that's something that I was always kind of interested in is how, you guys are the toughest and highly trained special operators in the world, and you guys seem so laid back. That's like amazing, I mean, and that's something that I think was always kind of passed around a little bit, where you get somebody who's completely uneducated on what you guys do and how you train, and they think that it's just very in your face, which I'm sure at times it most definitely is, but they feel, I mean, I had one guy who I knew, wasn't a friend of mine, I'll tell you that off the bat, but he was just very anti-military, anti-war. That's completely fine. That's his own personal, I mean, but would just go on and on and on about special operators and how they were brainwashed and this and that. And it's just kind of like man, well, if you speak to one, you might have a different opinion on everything that's coming out of your mouth. Because I was always curious. All you guys seem extremely, extremely laid back. And I know that there's a book where they say that a civilian won't recognize a Navy SEAL, but a Navy SEAL will recognize another Navy SEAL. It's like the swagger you guys
absolutely.
hold.
No, absolutely. There's something about your demeanor. And I think the overall concept of us being laid back and mellow comes from your upbringing or your introduction into special operations is you're humbled very quickly, and it is made very clear to you that you're a fucking new guy and you better, shut your mouth and learn. So I think it's really an old school way of being brought into a community. They don't give a shit what your rank is. Everything is reputation. So whatever name or nickname they decide to give you, and then it's your work ethic that determines whether people like you or not. Whereas in the regular military, you have to respect somebody that sometimes even one rank above you is the difference between the king and the peasant. But in most special operations units, in the teams for sure, it's first name basis or nickname. It's your reputation. And so I think we become laid back and humble so quick through our new guy phases, whether it's in BUDS, whether you're a new guy at a team, or whether you're at someone else's schoolhouse, you're at a Marine sniper course or something like that. You really learn just to kind of be quiet, learn as much as you can, and then let your performance speak for you. It's not a lot of barking in the teams. Even at BUDS, there's not a lot of barking. I know that documentary that came out showed some barking, and I think some of that was hammed up for the cameras for History Channel a little bit. There's definitely times they get in your ass, but usually it's that psychological warfare. It's almost the dad that says, "I'm not mad at you, I'm disappointed," and that breaks your heart. Like, oh fuck, I let the old man down. That's kind of what BUDS is like. Is that there's enough challenges without the false bravado of constantly yelling. I don't know what that accomplishes other than confusion. Buds is very task oriented. You either accomplish it or you don't. And the teams is just a bigger matrix of buds. It's just a bigger constant challenge of learning things, proving yourself. Um, and you have to be calm and you do have to be smart. Most enlisted team guys have a degree, if not some college like myself. I have 3 years of college. And I decided to withdraw and pursue my career in the Navy. That is not uncommon for the enlisted ranks. Um, you have to be, in order to understand the medicine, the combat medicine that goes with it, the communications, the radio platforms, all the different types of radios we use, the weapon systems platforms, the diving, the air operations, all these different things that we have to take into account. You have to know a lot about your environment, whether you're a desert team, a winter team, jungle team. You have to know a lot about tides and currents. What the hell the moon's doing can affect your mission. So you have to be a smart dude and you have to be able to absorb a lot of material quickly. And again, you can't do that if you're running your mouth about how awesome you are. So I think that's kind of the foundation of most team guys I know are mellow, laid back, super smart dudes, but can turn it up when needed. It's kind of a focused, I don't want to say aggression, but intensity. It's a focused intensity. Yeah. And we're not in the red all the time, running around yelling. We're very calm and laid back until there's that moment where we need to be aggressive, and then we can shift gears right back into being mellow.
And when you got to Buds, was there ever a time where, I mean, from square one, right when you got there, and everything was just real and in your face there, what was going through your head with that? I mean, within the first week, even, I'm sure it was just kind of like a what the fuck kind of moment. You know what I mean? Like this, I have seen Bud's Class 234,
Yep.
quite a good amount of times, and I'm sure that it's unimaginable everything that you're going through. I mean, just all the physical and everything, and the mental is just it looks just insane.
It is. It's overwhelming, man. Especially your first day is. I mean, you just know that you're a part of this epic world that so few people succeed at. I think for a lot of guys, doubt starts that first day. But for me, I had a little bit different of a feeling. I just wanted to take it day by day. And they even teach you, they give you all the tools you need to succeed at Buds. Actually, they want to see you succeed. They're not going to bend the standards whatsoever. But some of the mindset pieces that they taught us is take it one evolution at a time. Don't worry about, let's say you have a fucking 4-mile timed run after lunch. Don't worry about that, because if right now you're doing the obstacle course, but you're focused on, man, I already failed the 4-mile timed run. If I fail it twice, I'm going to go to a performance board. Well, in thinking of that, I already fucked up the O course and failed that. So now I have 2 failures to answer for. So they really teach you, don't stress out about other stuff. Focus on the task at hand. And then once that's completed, you focus on the next task. Even if that next task is running to chow, that's all you worry about. If you got underwater knot tying after chow, don't even think about it. And when you're on deck at the pool, then your mind is shifted to that evolution. So for me, that really helped, and that's something that I've actually I still carry with me to this day. Because life can pile up on you, and you got, oh my gosh, I got all this shit going on, and then I got bills to pay. So I do the same thing. The first thing I'm going to do when I wake up, I'm going to drink pre-workout and play guitar. Then the next thing I'm going to do, yeah, that's my morning routine. But then the next thing I'm going to do, okay, I got these 2 phone calls I got to make, bam. Then I'm in the truck and I'm on to this appointment or so. I still keep that focus on the task at hand mentality. So to me, Buds was very demanding physically, even more so mentally, but it really gave me the tools that I still use to this day to navigate through good times, tough times, all that stuff. So Buds is a great learning experience. Absolutely.
Wow. And is that just, I mean, how fast did it go? Did it go real slow, Buds, for you, or did it go by fast when you got, underneath the overhang and you were graduating? Looking back on it, what was that like?
It sneaks up on you, man, because They tell you don't look at buds as a 6 months program because it will overwhelm you. And one of their expressions is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And people psych themselves out. It's their third day of buds and they're already broken and cold. They're like, how can I do this for 5.5 more months or whatever? They psych themselves out. So if you keep your nose down, before you know it, you look up and you're like, holy shit, I just graduated first phase. And then you're so excited to be in second phase, learning all the diving stuff. Holy shit, we just graduated second phase. You know, we're gonna go off and do some land shit. Cool. So for me, that's how it was. Is I just it seemed to go by very quick. I'm sure at the time there were some slow moments. You know, things like Hell Week seemed to take forever. But before you know it, if you keep your head down, um, you look up and you're like, holy shit, I can't believe we're graduating. And that to me is just one of the most unrealistic, not unrealistic, it's unimaginable. Like I can't even put a word for it. It's just an unbelievable moment. I guess that's the best word I can find for it. It's just unbelievable. And it's at that moment where all the naysayers become your supporters. You know, all the family members that thought you were stupid for leaving the Marine Corps and dropping out of college. And, oh my God, what are you doing with your life? Now all of a sudden at Bud's graduation, you have cousins you didn't even know you had. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
So
What do
all
they
of a
say?
sudden,
You've done more for your family than two kids going to Princeton or something like. Isn't that the same? Isn't that a saying? I've heard that before a couple times.
I haven't heard that one, but I know the prestige that it carries with family members. You know, my mom still embarrasses me to this day by introducing me as her son Clark, the Navy SEAL, to like a stranger at the grocery store. I'm like, Mom, they don't care. Stop introducing me to people. But the family members take pride in it, and I could see even the wives, you know, take some pride in it. Sometimes a little too much pride, but you know, the Trident does things to people. I think more so to the people surrounding the team guy because you're surrounded by other team guys and you're humbled by their knowledge and their abilities. Um, Maybe more so when you get out of the teams. Do you miss it and you miss that level of professionalism and that level of awesomeness because you don't find that ever again. But when you're in it, it's just kind of what's normal to you. It's a neat feeling.
Hey, well, Clark, I definitely think you're a lot cooler than a Princeton grad. I can tell you
Well,
that
thank
right
you.
now, brother. Excluding Brooke Shields. I'm a big fan of Brooke Shields. I know she went to Princeton.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
so after graduation, what was going on then? You're kind of saying like the community now that you're a part of, and what happens after that? Are people's wives, girlfriends now, starting to kind of get involved? I mean, you see the Hollywood and stuff too, and that's where I don't know what's factual and what's not. So, the barbecues, hanging out, I mean, just that brotherhood is just so, it just is so not in any type of uh, weak word to use, but just as sparkles, man. How they,
Hmm.
everything. And is that really what's happening? What's going on afterwards, or?
Yeah, it does. I mean, you graduate buds, you bounce out to jump school, you come back to your team, and there's a different process now to actually get your bird, but that's the next big hurdle is to actually earn the trident. And so for us, all three teams went to the same STT, and then when we were done, we were kicked back to our teams, and then they had their own trident board qualification process. So then once you get through that, you get your bird and you get assigned to a platoon, and that's really where the bonding starts. You get assigned to a platoon. There's usually a couple new guys per platoon, and you definitely know you're low man on the totem pole, but not in a derogatory way. It's just it's a little overwhelming because there is a lot of talent and a lot of knowledge in one space. So it's a lot. You're just absorbing things and trying to learn, and you kind of pick a couple guys that might be mentors to you and pull you to the side and help you out. So it's overwhelming, but at that point, once you actually earn your trident, your life does change a little bit. It's the night that you actually get pinned is quite a fun ceremony. There's the official one, then there's the unofficial one that's a little bit more rowdy. But that's when like this shit's real. Like got my trident and I'm being assigned to a platoon. And now this is really where it begins. All that other stuff was kind of, you know, I don't want to say pre-kindergarten because you really pay some dues to get there, but compared to what you're about to enter, it really is, that moment when you get assigned to your platoon is really when it begins, and that's when everything counts. And so it's an overwhelming experience yet again. There's several phases of being overwhelmed, buds being one of them, and then being new to your team. But then when you actually get your trident and assigned to a platoon, it's like, holy shit, this is work time. Like, we are training up to go overseas, and who knows what will happen at that point. So it's a lot of learning. It's a lot of this is where the stress starts with the family, because you're gone 10 months out of every year, whether you're training or deployed. So you're always on a travel training trip doing whatever package you're doing, whether it's, a diving package out of town or a CQB package out of town. There's not a lot of training that happens uh, in your location. A lot of it requires air travel to do different things. So that's where the family starts to see kind of the beginning of the stress of the team guy lifestyle, being gone for 3, 4 weeks, coming home for a week, then being gone for 2 weeks, coming home for a week, being gone for 2 months, coming home for a week. That's
Yeah.
pretty much the training tempo that you endure. And then after several months of that, you bounce overseas for your deployment. And so again, you're gone. So it's a lot on you as a new guy. You're trying to learn as much as you can and be a performer. You want to gain the respect and trust of your platoon mates, your teammates, and you're trying to maintain a marriage, which is, probably the curse of the teams. Most team guys I know are not with the same gal as they were when they started buds.
Yeah.
So in fact, I only know of 2 dudes that are still with the same lady. So it's out of the hundreds of dudes I know, there's only been 2 that I can think of um, that are still with the same lady. So yeah, that's kind of where the bumps in the road start.
And I mean, as far as that, are you just kind of like everything playing out, and stuff I know is personal, and where you're going, is it just kind of start to build up on you too, where you're so focused on what you're doing, whether you're in a jungle or in a desert terrain, halfway around the world, you got to stay, do you say to yourself, I got to stay focused on this, but
Yeah,
is that what's
100%,
kind of happening?
100%. So that's just kind of the advanced version of what they teach you in buds, to focus on the task at hand, and that's why they ingrain that so early on. Is that if I'm overseas and I'm thinking about my family situation back home, my mind's not in the game. Even if I'm in another state doing some CQB training, if my mind is on my marriage when I'm running through the kill house, I might shoot my buddy in the back or crank one through the roof, or you have to be 100% focused. Let's say I'm at the packing tables making explosives. If I'm not 100% focused on what I'm doing, I could blow up the whole packing table, killing teammates.
Yeah.
Same with, for example, I was a rigger. I'd pack parachutes for my platoon. If I wasn't 100% focused and I packed a parachute wrong, I got somebody's life in my hands. And so that's why you really do turn it off and you leave your problems at the door. You have to, because I have a group of dudes that depend on me for whatever my piece of the pie is, whatever I'm responsible for. I'm 100% accountable for that. And so I think that's why a lot of guys, they grow apart from their families, because you are gone so much and your mind is always on the next task. Even if I'm home for a week, it's a quick turnaround. I'm going to go into the team area. I'm going to, clean out my gear, reorganize everything, get ready for you know, the next movement we got to do, whatever that situation is. So your weekends are chewed up because you have so much to accomplish that you're even coming in on the weekends. I used to bring my kids with me,
Yeah.
at least to try to spend some time with them. So that's what becomes very tough. It's, you really are married to your team. And whether people admit it or not, I think most guys in the teams or special operations will admit this. Your first priority is the unit. And it's tough to live that way. It's tough for families to accept that. But at that level of the game, it has to be that way. And if someone says otherwise, they're BSing you for sure. So that's what starts to kind of cause. I know for me personally, that was a big thing that was difficult in my life, and I saw that happen time and time and time again. Is dudes' personal lives um, either non-existent or just crumbling into nothing. That was very tough. Now there are some guys with some successful marriages, and they were able to go to a schoolhouse billet for a while, go to Buds as an instructor for a while, maybe maintain their personal relationships, or uh, to be productive in college, go after a degree or something. There are a few shore duty billets that were created in the team so that guys could get a break from the operational tempo, but those were few and far between. They spend a lot of money training you up to put you overseas, and that's the higher ups' primary focus, not your personal boo-hoo-hoos. It's putting boots on the ground in different places around the world. So you kind of realize that the further you go on, there's a reason why they're dumping all this training into you. Is you're now a piece of equipment that they plan on using to the maximum benefit for the greater cause.
Yeah, and even to jump back from that, to like even take it back a step, when you had just graduated, what was it like for you guys? Just kind of going out and stuff. I know you said about some of the stories and stuff like that. But what was that like? Because I could picture in my head, if you guys are rolling to a bar and
Mm-hmm.
some
Yeah.
jackass starts mouthing off, obviously in his head has no idea who is there with him. Um, what's that kind of stuff like? I'm sure the confidence level is just through the roof.
It is, and we definitely are. Uh, you know, Pack animals by nature. We travel in packs usually, so we're usually rolling pretty deep. Just because in Buds they build that team concept. So even when we go out socially, we tend to click up together in groups of 4 or 5 or 10, and we'll go out. Typically, we go to certain locations so they kind of know the deal. It's usually more of us, if anything. But if we do like go out to downtown San Diego, I think people, just human nature, they sense that there's something going on. They see a bunch of in shape, kind of smiley faced dudes coming in the bar wearing Hawaiian shirts and some type of silly flip flops. They kind of know the deal. I never ran into any problems out in town. I think most guys are just laid back, happy dudes that it's usually the other side will start something maybe over a girl, or, dumb things can happen. But for the most part, especially after just graduating, we were so happy to be a part of the community. We were just on cloud nine, like it was an unrealistic situation we were in. I always felt like I was living in a dream world. Like, this is crazy. I can't believe that, we did this and we're at this point, and, I'm getting ready to do this. And it was all so exciting. And really, in the early phases of your platoon life and your life in the teams, you're so busy doing stuff. You might sneak out once in a while for, a couple drinks with the missus, or the guys get together, or somebody gets married, and so there's a big celebration. Um, but really, a lot of that happens on your platoon travel trips when it's just the boys. You'll have some downtime as you're doing different courses around the country and other places, and so that's when really the camaraderie and the, hey, the whole platoon's going out, and all right, cool, and new guys end up driving. We're the designated drivers, or you know, or luckily maybe there's a dude on the team that doesn't really drink, so he's always the designated driver. So that's where a lot of that kind of off-duty camaraderie is built, is in the platoon life, all the travel training trips and having fun and going out as a wolf pack. It still happens, like in San Diego back home, but most of that happens when you're on the road. So that's where the shenanigans can start, especially when it's just the dudes. If you're out with the wives, you're a little more mellow, but when you get a pack of dudes, at some school in Fort Benning, Georgia, and it's Army strong, and you're in a bar making fun of people's little mohawk haircuts they have, and that's when that kind of stuff starts. So it's it can get interesting for sure.
I can imagine, and it's just funny how, even just going back to you saying laid back, everything's kind of revolved around that. I even remember when I had Rob O'Neill on the show. He said after he got back from the mission, or got in the helicopter, the pilot just tossed him a can of Copenhagen and just asked him, "How's it feel to be a hero?" And it just kind of like that demeanor. It's just like
Yeah.
this is wild. You know what I mean? That's so wild, and it's so incredible too. You know what I mean? I can now see where you guys are able to stay focused, all the time. And if you were too stressed, do you feel like that would
Hmm.
completely alter? And not to ask a stupid question or make that sound like a dumb question, but you guys, the situations that you're put in, other people fold and crack.
Hmm.
I feel
Well,
like
I
each
think it's
question
what
I ask
becomes.
I can answer myself, because then it's like the people who are not meant to be Navy SEAL then, obviously, but I'll let you answer.
Well, that's why the selection process is what it is. But also, it's what becomes normal to you. It's your day to day thing, and I think that's in any profession. Like for me and you, an emergency room doctor might be a crazy career profession. Like, holy shit, this dude's coming in with a gunshot wound to the head, and you're just like, all right, let's do this. They're usually calm as a cucumber because they're indoctrinated into that type of work. And I think it's the same in the teams or any other unit. That's why the selection process is so rigorous. And that's why it takes so long to get fully qualified because they have to expose you to as many scenarios as close to the real thing as possible so that when you see the real thing for the first time, they actually want you to be disappointed. That means they did their job to prepare you as instructors. So the first time you get into some shit overseas, you're calm. Like, oh, okay, shit. It's almost a disappointment, depending on the shit you get in. I mean, there's some scenarios out there that, for example, Black Hawk Down, I don't think there's a way to ease into that scenario.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm sure.
but for a lot of people, their first gunfight's a skirmish or just they work a certain area for a while and they get indoctrinated to it. But the teams does a good job at preparing you for that stuff. And so just that being a normal day for you, day after day after day, is definitely why people are laid back and it's you don't act like it's your first touchdown and do this little dance in the end zone and the backflip and all that is it's you also keeping your cool around the more senior guys too. You want to keep the respect and the trust levels high. If they see you acting like a fool, they'll be like, what's wrong with you? Is this the first time you've done this or that? And there definitely are checkpoints. I think everyone remembers the first time they rode in a helicopter or the first time they blew something up or, whatever your little goals were or your little shits and giggles were early on. With that work tempo and op tempo, they quickly get hashed out. You don't even remember what you had for breakfast sometimes because you're so focused on the next op, the next task, whatever's going on. So I think that's probably, the biggest reason why team guys are mellow is just it's an everyday occurrence, man. It's just how it is day to day.
And now you having been in the shit, and having actually done it, if you were to see something with Hollywood, like what's your opinion now on that? If something's like completely just Hollywooded up, and you actually haven't been there and done stuff like that legitimately.
It's Yeah, it's tough. You see a film, about an AO that you've been in or a line of work that you've done. I've definitely been to some AOs and done some things. Fortunately, in my life, I've had some friends, some blessed friends that have really done some epic things. So I don't necessarily consider what I've done as being in the shit compared to some of the experiences. Some of my brothers have truly had amazing experiences, like holy shit, like going to the Super Bowl type stuff. I've been blessed. I've always been a part of a good crew, a good unit. Definitely been to some parts of the world that will hand you your ass. Definitely for me personally, the Gaza Strip was very eventful, and then Iraq was very eventful. Um, but it is difficult to see even some news headlines or some stories that come out about places that you've been piss you off because you're like, it's not like that at all. Especially when Hollywood gets their hooks into it. I mean, there's just some TV series that I can't watch or some movies I can't watch because you're just like, this is so ridiculous, especially in regards to the teams. They haven't captured the personality of a team guy yet. they still make them a little too militaristic, yes sir, no sir, kind of robotic. Team guys are kind of like violent surfers, man. You know what I mean? Like we're laid back, we'll rock some board shorts and flip flops, but we'll put a couple hot ones in you too. They haven't
Yeah.
captured that duality of a team guy yet, so I find a lot of that in the movies. Um, that's why these books that are coming out, I know they're frowned upon in the community, but it does capture the personality of team guys. You know, Kevin's book, Rob's book, a lot of these dudes' books really captures who we are and what we go through. And every book I've read so far, it's not a book that's me in the team guy, the true spirit of a team guy. It's about, hey, this is what we did. This is our story, which is still cool to see.
And, I mean, even as far as today, just with everything going on, to touch on news headlines, what would be your opinion? This is kind of from left field a little bit, but what would be your opinion on the different tactics of intel and warfare from the bad guys? I mean, as far as even with social media, I mean, that's, I feel like, something that is often not really acknowledged or talked about as much. And I feel like it probably should be. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you catch this random follow from somebody who's completely, you don't know who the hell they are. And
Yeah.
and that's something that I've always kind of been curious about. I mean, with everything going on right now, it just seems like nobody will focus even on that. I mean, when you guys come back home, do you kind of stress over that? I mean, as people from the past who are still kind of trying to look and see what you're doing, or
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think one, excuse me, I got to burp a second here.
that's all
Uh,
good, man. No way.
yeah. No, I think one thing a mistake that we make as a nation, as a people, is we underestimate our enemy. I think we kind of dehumanize them, and I know, oh, stupid Haji, or these little nicknames we give them, kind of dehumanizes them. But really, there are a lot of intelligent people that are on the other side. They're savvy with social media. They're savvy with their tactics. They'll make use of what's available. They might not have the military might we do, but they can still sting you with their primitive tactics. But they're actually very savvy with how they go about things, and they actually do study us. And that's part of the problem when you talk about social media, books, movies. We basically advertise our playbook. You can almost YouTube anything in the world, or look at different social media outlets, and you can learn how to do CQB, you can learn how to build bombs, you can learn how to do rolling surveillance, camouflage and concealment. um, so now the enemy is almost as equipped and trained as we are to a certain point. I think where we succeed is to the level of which we'll go to be professional. I know I've worked with foreign special forces units in the Middle East, and they might have similar gear, but they do not have the same passion we do. They're not going to PT twice a day, 7 days a week. They're not going to spend 4 hours on the range honing in their handgun and rifle skills every day. The commitment to excellence isn't there, but the playbook is there. I know for a fact by the unit that we trained in Iraq, what we taught them, I was surprised that we taught them that. So we have to realize those tactics, that knowledge is in the enemy's hand, because today's student could be tomorrow's terrorist. I think a lot of my former students that I taught in Iraq, or was a part of that mission that was teaching them, I'm sure some of them went over to ISIS. And so now we have to realize they are savvy to how we think. They know how we train, they know how we prepare, and they do study us. They do study social media, they do study YouTube, and they know our weakness. Whether it's not the individual operator, but they know our policies and procedures and our rules of engagement and all this crap that we're not allowed to do at times, and then we're allowed to do it at certain times. So it is dangerous, and then it's dangerous on a personal platform. I think any member of the special operations unit, past or present, is always worried about some local dude wanting to make a name for himself. and try to do something with your family, or it's tough. Um, especially those of us that are out there a little bit. I don't have a book or anything like that, but I do have Instagram, and I do I own a training company with a business partner, and so we do put ourselves out there. We do put our location out there, our names out there, our backgrounds out there. So if somebody these days, if somebody wants you, they can have a good shot at getting you, no matter who you are. That's kind of I guess the long answer to that question. But yeah, it's definitely scary with the way people can do things now with all the different platforms that are out there. I think it's every former operator's concern. It should be anyway, if it's not.
Yeah, and I mean, do you feel like that, you know, with all that stuff that's at play and going on, that's going to become more of the new style of fighting? I mean, not even to jump completely back into Hollywood and stuff, but even going off of that, watching movies where they had kids or even young adults putting back Argo. I watched Argo.
Yep.
It was a long
Yep.
ago, but still, you know, taking shredded paperwork and piecing it back together. And do you feel like the enemy is trying to have people kind of hone in and see what the U.S. is up to in the everyday life, everyday move? I mean, obviously, I mean, but you kind of know what I'm getting at. I mean,
Yeah.
it's weird. You get a random follow from somebody where it's just kind of like, what the hell is going on? And that's when I
Mhm.
spoke to Ray Kerr. He said the same thing. He said, "Yeah, I think it's an absolutely big issue." And
Mhm.
it's just something I feel like that's not often even acknowledged. Where people say, "Oh, it's all good," or all civilian people, "Oh, I'll go and I'll you know arm myself," or who have no training or whatever. I mean, and that's something that I feel like is a huge concern. Because I feel like it's kind of a way of them putting the American's mind not at ease. It constantly kind of keeping it confused. Making you fearful.
Oh
But
yeah.
then making you possibly do something stupid as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that there's people that are sent here to gather intel. I don't think it's any secret that we also do the same thing in other countries. Um, that's just kind of an old tactic from probably you know way back in the Knights of England and stuff. To have people just go to local areas, hang out, make friends with people, read newspapers, follow certain people on social media. But I do think that um, former operators could be a big target, just because that would put fear in people. If these former operators get picked off, what's the average Joe going to think? And so that's something that's always on our mind. Um, that at some point we are a target of some importance to those people, especially a former team guy. The teams have done a lot of good work overseas, and it's obviously angered some people. I know some bros of mine that get nervous at book signings because you're kind of vulnerable. I mean, you got to sit there and you got to meet people, and you've advertised you're going to be at a certain location at a certain time, and especially from certain community that has ties in, counterterrorism, you've pissed off the other side pretty significantly. So any member of that unit's going to be a trophy for those guys, and of course it'll make headlines, which is what they want. They want that not only mass devastation, but they want that ripple effect. They really are after controlling your fears in your mind, making you scared to go about your daily life. So if you had a couple operators getting picked off, I think that could be a big problem. And I know it's been talked about in the community and amongst ourselves. I don't think that the public's very aware of it. I entered into the social media realm to help a couple businesses grow, but I do feel exposed by it, and I do feel that other family members are exposed by it. Luckily, I'm a pretty low man on the totem pole. I'm not a super duper sexy cool guy. I'm just a dude that did his time and did some other stuff. But still, being a part of certain communities, I think that's a huge concern, man.
And I mean, even with everything that's going on as of right now, even with let's use, if you don't mind, let's use North Korea for example. everything that's happening right now, just this constant shift. I wanted to get your opinion on that. What you truly think about that, if you don't mind sharing, or what you think about that.
Yeah, North Korea has always been a concern, even from when I was in the teams, because it's always been an unpredictable regime. They play nice. They always play a game of slap tickle. They're jerks for a while and then they're cool for a while, and they're jerks for a while and they're cool for a while. Obviously, there's new leadership in charge, so I think he's a little more unpredictable because he's younger. Um, so I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't trust it. I think there's probably something hidden, but I always hope that, hey, maybe dude just said I'm tired of watching my people starve, and I don't think so. I mean, I've been in a lot of countries that are set up in a similar fashion, whereas you get like one family that hoards all the wealth and everyone else is just starving peasants. I just find it hard to believe that that family is going to give up money, power, and control to make things better. Like, do they really care about their people? So I'm just historically, I don't trust them, but as a person, I think it would be great if what they're saying is going to happen, that they reunify Korea, and I just I'm just kind of like waiting to see, cautiously optimistic, I guess, man.
No, I mean
I always
my grandfather served in the Korean War, so he's told me he's got the same opinion.
yeah.
It's kind of like it's just kind of seeing the way, not even focusing on a negative, but how the country has kind of altered and shifted within the last, let's say, 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
As to everything being a bit more soft, and
Mm-hmm.
how, of course, it's a historical moment, but Kim Jong Un giving a speech, and then people in South Korea saying he's quite a hero, and
Mm-hmm.
here my entire mindset is not even focusing on him himself. It's just the fact of, we're giving attention to this guy. I mean,
Yeah.
let's give it to the people who deserve it. I mean, my
Yeah. Sure.
grandfather, the other men who served right when it started to kick off, up into the 80s, to, gentlemen like yourself, that's where it kind of, bugs the hell out of me, because I feel like, you know, the medal's going to the wrong guy, and it's just
Oh, for
not to
sure.
say a medal, but, I mean, wasting airtime on certain stuff is just like, this guy is, you don't just walk over and just everything be okay after you said everything else. It's just very odd.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, you have decades of stress and resources allocated to things, and it's been somewhat of a back burner item since the 50s for our country, but it's always been there. It's always been a threat that we've had to keep an eye on and deal with, and all these means that we deal with problem nations like that. For all of a sudden, for him to just say, "Oh, shit's cool," like
Yeah, it's
I'm
nuts.
not buying it. Hopefully, who knows? But yeah, I think I think he knows how to manipulate, especially you know what he perceives to be a softer Western culture. Like they can play mind games with these people because they have all these rules, and I can pretty much do what I want. Um, but I do think having Trump as president, I think Kim Jong Un realizes he's a lot more no nonsense than other people in our government have been. So I think I don't know if he's trying to play chess and he's trying to out trick him. I just for me it's kind of wait and see. Like I said, I hope it goes well. I hope this is a genuine thing, but I just find it hard to believe that this family has had power for the last however long since the 50s. It's a good 60, 70 years, whatever. They're just going to turn over the keys and say, okay, let's all get along. It's a strange development for sure.
Clark, I didn't understand when Dennis Rodman was going over there from that moment. You know what I mean? It's like, what the hell
Yeah.
is going on here? He's obsessed with basketball. He wants Michael
Hmm.
Jordan. He doesn't get him, so he takes Dennis Rodman. It's
Yeah.
just it's crazy. And it makes no sense, and it just makes me think like, how many times is this guy in Washington? Getting asked questions. Why are you over there? What's going on?
Hmm.
It's like, you can't tell me that shit's not getting passed around. You know what I mean? It just kind of, it seems just
Yeah.
completely. out of the loop and everything else, and it just doesn't make much sense. But I just feel like it's, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a huge concern, and I think it's just something that people are not too focused on, not to focus on negative all the time with stuff that civilians can't control. But it just kind of seems like it just is frowned. I mean, there's way too many people, in my opinion, in the country now who are frowning on stuff that America's doing good and America's trying to help people. I mean, with the chemical attacks, and
Mm-hmm.
sending in the strike to take out those bases. You know, it just kind of seems like people want to ask the stupid question of, "Are you positive that nobody was there?" When it's been confirmed. Some of the most intelligent
Mm-hmm.
people who confirmed it that there weren't. Why is that even being asked? Like it it just
Yeah.
it's depressing, because it's like it's just hard to kind of see how everything has kind of shifted. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah, it's definitely a tough political climate. We're obviously so polarized as a nation that the two parties just they wage war on each other. I think Nick Irvin said it best. It's a civil war without guns. The one side can't do shit without the other side just blowing them out of the water. Um, I think, especially in times of conflict, we really need to come together and support our country, support the government. It sounds easy to do, but it's something that used to happen. I mean, I remember as a kid, anytime there was a conflict, whether it was bombing Gaddafi's residence under Reagan or Panama Grenada, like the country just clicked up together immediately and supported the government, regardless of who was in office. It was just like, oh shit, it's getting real. We better pull together. Even as a kid, I felt that. Even in the Gulf War, it just seemed like everybody was behind it. I don't remember any protests. I was only in high school, so I was not is geographically aware as I am now of things, but still, there were no protests in the city. Everyone was behind it. It was all this funny Saddam shit going around. So we used to come together, and now it's completely opposite. Anything that the president does, they just shit on him. Whereas other presidents could strike the shit out of you with these unmanned drones, and it wouldn't even make the news. So I don't know what's the difference. Like he's gonna tell you, you do this, we're gonna fuck you up. Then when he fucks you up, everyone freaks out. Like, dude, at least he's telling you what he's doing. I'm sure there's some off the radar stuff, but for the most part, you know what you got. I don't see where the problem is. If the government feels that we need to do this, all of us need to, stand behind them, unless it's just something atrocious, which I don't see happening. Um, yeah, it confuses me, man. Definitely, there's things have changed in that spectrum. That's why I had the easy part. I just had to serve. I can't imagine the stuff that goes on in Washington, man. I'd rather just, you know, do my thing overseas and come home and not worry about it, because I can't even imagine. There was a what was that great quote from oh shit was oh man, not 300. It was it Gladiator? Yeah, where he was talking about he wanted him to be the new emperor, but he said basically he preferred to stare his enemy in the face. He liked to be a soldier,
Yeah.
because the politicians they stab each other in the back. I don't remember the exact quote, but at that little conversation, I'm like, absolutely, I'd rather be a soldier and just go find the enemy on the battlefield and then it's done. But the politicians, man, that's the real war right there. The stuff that they do with each other and lie about and sneaky, it just baffles me. So I stay away from all that, man. I try to support whoever. I posted something the other day. Wishing for your president to fail is like hoping your pilot crashes the airplane. Like, why would you want the current administration to fail? Whether it's Democratic or Republican, they're the ones in charge. You should want them to succeed in certain areas. I mean, you don't have to agree with everything they say, but I don't hope the pilot in my airplane he's flying has a bad day. I don't care if I like him or not. I hope he has a good day because he's in charge of my shit right now. And that's kind of what the government is. They're in charge of what's happening right now. So why not enable them to be successful at what they're doing to a point, not a total compromise, but yeah, man, it's pretty crazy. I went off a little bit on a political tangent, but
No, that's all good, man. It's hey, I wrap it up with, in my opinion, I don't know how the girl with the pink hair is thinking that she knows more than Donald Trump, or I mean,
yeah.
or the president or the people at his cabinet. I mean, uh, one thing I do want to ask you before we sign off, is that stuff going on right now. What's your opinion with the stuff going on with the border control kind of activity? I know that they shifted the National Guard, and
hmm
as for extra security, and I kind of wanted to get your opinion on that. I mean, just in regards to the military now taking force and patrolling the border, making sure that nothing's going wrong.
Yeah, I wish, man, if I was the president, I'd use my military for a lot more than overseas stuff. I know we have the posse comitatus, but could you imagine unleashing, let's say, Delta Force in downtown Chicago to fight the gangs? How
Oh my
quickly we
God,
could clean that up?
yeah, I can
But
imagine.
but honestly, what kills me is we have these top-notch abilities, but we're not allowed to use them to solve modern problems. I get the posse comitatus. We don't want the military, but there is the cartels running through that border. Why can't we have fucking some team guys go down there and whack them? Like I don't get why we can't use the military certain ways. Law enforcement's under-equipped, underappreciated, and oftentimes hated. But there are some tough MS-13. Why couldn't we send in Rangers to clean them up? Why
Yeah,
not?
you're
I'll, I'll,
absolutely
I'll
right.
go. I'll go toe to toe with MS-13. Let me pick a unit. All
Yeah.
right, Marine Marsoc, go fuck these dudes up. So to back up from that, obviously that's probably why I'll never be president. But as far as the border stuff, I've worked a border interdiction task force. I've done some private security work along the borders and stuff. And it's sad what you see out there in the desert. There's a lot of people suffering. A lot of people get lost and die of exposure. A lot of people get hurt, bit by snakes and die. A lot of people being raped by coyotes and drug trafficking. Um, it's a struggle in that desert, and that desert is alive almost every day and night of the year. What I would do is I would lock the border down 100%. I'm all for that, but the second portion of that would be to make immigration um, streamlined. My wife came here from Thailand, and it took several years and about $10,000 to naturalize her as a citizen. It's a ridiculous, expensive process. Um, that it should be a shortened, legitimate process. We don't want to authenticate criminals by not verifying things and skipping things.
Sure.
But if we made a streamlined, legitimate process that was cheaper and quicker, I think most of the people that come here, they want to come here and seek productive lives. Um, but the bad guys are blending in with them, obviously. And sometimes it's overt. You straight up have these backpacking crews that hike anything from coke, heroin, meth, marijuana. They just, these burlap backpacks, and 20, 30, 50 of them just hike through the desert to a designated drop point, and they're golden. Like, how is that allowed to come through here with our surveillance technology and other things that we can do to track that sort of stuff? It baffles me. I was never involved with human trafficking so much. It was more of the drug trafficking side of the fence. Um, but yeah, I would shut it down, and I'm not opposed to putting the military on the border. Not even National Guard guys. I would probably put some devil dogs on the border and make it a substantial lockdown. But in doing that, that substantial threat of force is to stop the criminal element, to encourage the legitimate people that want to immigrate. And that's why I would streamline the process, which me and my wife struggled through. It's ridiculous. The amount of time and money spent to do it the right way, to be honest, it's a lot cheaper and quicker just to do it the illegal way. And that's why people are doing it. Well, I could spend 2 grand and risk it, or I could wait 8 years and spend $10,000, $15,000, which I don't have. So,
Do they
I would
have you guys
definitely.
train the federal agents, Clark, ever, or work with that? Guys like yourself, like SEALs or Delta or any type of special forces, who will do training segments with federal agents such Border Patrol, FBI.
Yeah, there's a lot of cross training. Um, Me personally, my experience in the teams, I never worked with border patrol dudes. We ran into them out on the water a couple times and stuff. The only feds that we worked with when I was in the teams were, the three-letter people that are out there. But there has to be a lot more cross training. I know there's a lot of federal agencies, FBI, and different task forces that are even found in Afghanistan and stuff. And so I know um, there are task forces stateside that have a military handshake and training. To what level, to what degree, I don't know, because I know there's the whole posse comitatus, and a lot of times it's just as an advisor, something's going to happen, or maybe they set up different private training groups that these law enforcement can break out of the shell and go get some training and then come back. They technically received it as a civilian. There's things like that. But I think there should be more direct support. The military should be allowed um, to be used in certain situations stateside. It just kills me that we have the world's best military and we waste it by solving other people's problems halfway around the world when, man, you want to send some tier one dudes somewhere to clean some stuff up? How about the cartels in Mexico? That would be a great start. You know what I mean? Wipe out the criminal element that's next door. Who cares about ISIS running around in Syria? Does that really affect us stateside? Okay, in theory, sure. There's a rabbit hole we could go down with that. But what directly affects us every day is the violence the cartels spill across that border in the form of narcotics, the gangs that support them, the prison systems. I mean, I would definitely take the gloves off if I was president, and I'd send some boys to clean up the cartel situation. And don't you think that the average Mexican citizen would love to now live in a town that's not run by the cartels?
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's
I
gotta
think in
suck. You
Syria
don't.
that would be the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Anywhere you get rid of the tyrants, whether it's ISIS or the cartel. But for me, the more immediate threat is obviously the one that's right at our border. I mean, that is directly affecting us on so many levels every day. Yeah, there's other hotspots overseas. We have the tools and the talent to solve some problems, but I'm not sure why the problem next door has been so ignored for so long. And I've been to Mexico, parts of it near the San Diego border. It could be a beautiful beach getaway tourist destination if you weren't scared of getting your head cut off with a chainsaw, you
Yeah.
know?
And one more question I do have for you that's was prevalent. I think it's still prevalent actually in the news now. What's your opinion on this stuff going on with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who now is, the accusations are coming out that his head was bashed against a wall, and shit like that. Him kind of like I guess they're saying now he might not get the death penalty, et cetera, kind of for everything that he's done. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, to any of those type of dudes, fuck them. If you're in that business, you should expect to get fucked up. Whether it's the dudes that snatch you up, or later on, the different sites you end up at to be interrogated. You decided to be a terrorist asshole, and now you're going to try to complain about different things. And I think just fuck them, get rid of them. I mean, the short answer is they're bad dudes, and they just need to go away. Why should we waste money with all these court trials and
Yeah, what the
all this
fuck is
other
up with
stuff?
that? We have lawyers who are American
I don't
arguing
know.
for him. That just makes no
I
sense
don't
to
know.
me. That's just a case that I would most definitely want nothing to do with. It's
Well, yeah, it's not a criminal matter. It's a terrorist matter. I mean, it's a
absolutely.
whole nother level. It's not criminal stuff. He wasn't, a local gangbanger or mafia dude or a drug runner. This is an international terrorist. There's obviously tons and tons of evidence that this dude is a bad dude.
Yeah,
Just get rid of him. I like the whole Bin Laden thing. Just kick his
yeah,
ass off in the ocean.
absolutely. I hear you. Hey, well, Clark, I want to say, man, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was good chatting with you, brother. Hit me up anytime, man.
Yes, sir. Perfect. Clark, thank you so much for being on Patriots Corner. And yeah, we'll have to set something back up soon. Keep being the man, because that's what you are. And thank you for your service, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, man. Take care, brother.
Yep. Bye.